Hey everybody, hope you're doing great today. This is Paul from This Way to the Aquarium. In today's video I'm going to talk about going to an aquarium auction. We've got an aquarium auction here that's happening in my local area. I'm a member of the local aquarium society, and typically after each monthly meeting they have a short auction at the end of the meeting where they're sometimes auctioning off fish, auctioning off plants. So usually your selection in that situation is pretty limited, but this main auction that's coming up that's all it's going to be about. It's just about auctioning fish, auctioning plants. So I'm excited to go there. This will actually be my first main auction that I'm going to be going to, and I already have in mind what kind of fish I want. I've got a number of tanks that are in the process of being set up. This one right here, this 40-gallon is already set up. It's been running. Pretty sure it's cycled up as well too. I put some existing plants that came from another mature tank in here, so they have beneficial bacteria on it. I've been also adding some bacteria starter from a bottle I got actually from this aquarium society. They have a door prize every time you go to the meeting. So one of the meetings I picked up a bacteria starter for aquariums. I do have a couple other tanks as well too that are in the process. I've got the 75-gallon over here. Obviously still it's got a lot of work to go on that one. I've just got a little bit of sand in there. I need to pour more sand in there, start getting the decorations in, fill it up with water. So it's not really ready yet for inhabitants. And then I've got another 29-gallon I just purchased and starting to get that ready as well too. So I kind of have an idea of what fish I want to put in those tanks. So I'm not necessarily ready at this point. So if I do happen to run across those fish, I don't know if I'm going to bid on those fish. Well, I do have a quarantine tank set up right now, and I could easily pop them in there and they'll be there and be fine for a little while as I set up these other tanks, since I have this tank set up already. So I'm thinking of a couple different fish that I want to get for this and some invertebrates. So hopefully the auction has something like that I could bid on and win and then put in this tank here eventually. Now with this tank, since there's currently no inhabitants in there, I don't plan on quarantining any fish. They'll be the only inhabitants in the tank. They're not going to impact any other fish, any other invertebrates in there. So if I put them in there, I can at least treat them in there. They'll likely be the only fish in there or the only invertebrates in there at the time. The one disadvantage of that is I do have a smaller quarantine tank. So when it comes to treating fish in quarantine, let's say you do have to medicate them, it's actually a little more cost effective to do it in a smaller tank because a lot of those medicines advise you to dose based on how many gallons of water you have. So obviously if you have a 40-gallon tank, you're going to have to use more medicine versus a smaller 10-gallon, 20-gallon quarantine tank. You'll have to use less medicine. So just like with anything shopping related, especially for myself, I like to go in with a plan. Knowing what my budget is, knowing what I want to buy, and then have a plan for that. I don't want to just go kind of willy-nilly and start bidding on everything. That runs into a problem, especially in these auction type of things. People get excited, they're bidding against other people, there's a competitive nature. So what ends up happening is you might overspend on something, or you don't plan ahead of time. Let's say you do have a tank like this over here, you have a tank, it's already full, and you've got a bunch of mbuna in there, and you see some great looking tetras that you want to get. Well, those tetras not necessarily going to go well with your mbuna. Your mbuna might harass them, chase them around. Depending on the size, they might even make them a snack. So that's not a good idea to get tetras for an mbuna tank. Now on the other hand, if you've got empty tanks or you've got a understocked tank, and so you know, okay, I want some fish over here that add to the color over here, then do your research ahead of time, figure out what fish you want, and go in with a plan. Figure out what you're going to bid on, how much you want to bid on it, because we don't want to overbid on these things too. So the way I do it is I compare to local stores here. I frequent the local fish stores here, kind of just compare, get an idea of the pricing of the fish that they have, especially with the fish that I know I'm going to put in these tanks. Then I'll kind of monitor their prices. Since I'm not ready right away to buy these fish because my tanks aren't ready, I'm okay with just kind of looking around. Sometimes I'm going there for supply, sometimes I'm going there for food. I always tour the tanks as well too, just to see what's interesting and what's new in there. So same thing. Take a look at the pricing over there. If you're considering online sources for your fish, take a look at the pricing. Now with your online fish pricing, you need to add in shipping as well too. Depending on how many fish you're ordering, where you're ordering it from, a lot of times you're looking at a minimum of $60, $70 just for that shipment of fish. So let's say you're going to order 10 tetras, for example, and those fish cost $6 a piece. So not including shipping, that's $60. Now, if you add on, say, shipping for that company is $60 overnight shipping, that's another $60 on top of that. You're at $120. So basically, you're paying $12 per fish for that. Now, if your local store has them for $7, it might make more sense to go buy them from your local store. Or if they're up for auction, it would make sense to bid on those fish. But if it starts going above $120, then it doesn't make financial sense. So maybe you want to buy those fish from an online store, from a local store. The one risk with buying online is there's always that chance that delivery gets mishandled, the weather is different, the weather is bad, and those fish end up getting killed because of that. So there's a risk of that. You need to look at the policies of your local fish store, of your online fish stores, just to see, hey, what's their policies are for dead fish. Similarly, at this auction, there's probably going to be a, you buy it, that's it. There's no warranties, no guarantees, whatever you have. So you're kind of assuming your risk in there too. So price accordingly. Don't go overbidding, where if you know you can buy from some store online and they'll give you a dead on arrival guarantee, basically it comes to your door, the fish will be alive. Otherwise, they'll give you store credit or they'll give you an exchange or whatever they'll do for you. You know you have that guarantee versus you're buying it at an auction. In my opinion, if you're buying at an auction, that's what you're buying, that's what you get. And you're no warranties, no guarantees. That, you know, 24 hours from now, the fish you put in there, they're gone. They die for whatever reason. You know, that's, in my mind, that's should be worth less compared to, well, then instead, I'll go to my local pet store who I know that when they sell me fish, they'll give me a 48-hour guarantee. Assuming your tank parameters are proper, they'll give you 48 hours. The fish dies, bring it back to them, and they'll replace that fish for like kind.
Looking for 18. 17 once, twice, sold. I got 10, looking for 11. 10 looking for 11, 10 looking for 11, sold.
Here's what I got today from the auction. I got some frogbit plants, as well as some dream blue shrimp. Need to start acclimating these guys here. So I got 15 blue shrimp yesterday at the auction. They're all kind of hiding around the tank right now. It's a little hard to get them in focus. Doing manual focus over here just to kind of get a look on them. So I'm not always coming in clear. There's one back there on the filter. The rest of them are hiding somewhere in the tank. I saw a couple down here in between these rocks. So I did drop some food in here, which is hard to focus. There's some algae on the glass. Hoping that they come there and start munching on the food. They've got plenty of algae in and around the tank over here. So my guess is they're, wherever they're hiding, they're getting plenty to eat. Another little guy there on the base of that one's kind of hard to notice. Actually, there's two there. There's one small one here and one bigger one back there, also hard to see. So with shrimp, they need to acclimate for a couple hours. And then that's not over for them yet. I mean, most of your typical fish, you know, it's within that first 24-hour period after acclimation, putting them in the tank, you'll see whether or not they survive or not. So with shrimp, it actually takes a longer process. The issue can become with them is if they're not able to molt. Just due to stress, they molt right away. There's not enough minerals in the water, not enough minerals in the tank, and then they just end up dying because basically they can't get out of their shell. And so that's one of the risks with the shrimp. It takes a little longer for really determine whether the shrimp settle in or not, and you have any issues. Tank got a little cloudy for some reason. I checked the parameters, everything looks okay. Need to keep monitoring it, making sure everything remains okay for these guys. So I'll leave them alone. Don't plan on getting any other fish right now, right away. let them settle in, let the plants grow out a little more. I'm going to add some more plants, add some more driftwood as well here too. So have you ever been to a fish auction? If so, what type of fish did you end up purchasing at the auction, and were you satisfied with your purchase? So the fish auction I went to, as I just showed there in that clip, basically you were able to purchase via cash or via credit. When you're purchasing via credit, you open up a tab, provide your credit card number to the checkout person over there. They'll keep it on file, and you can just bid on fish, and assuming you win that particular auction, they'll log it down that you won this particular auction, you get the fish. When you're either done at the auction or it's at the end of the day, you go and pay for everything. They'll charge your credit card for the total amount, and you're good to go. I, on the other hand, came in as a cash buyer. I brought enough cash. I knew I wasn't going to buy a lot. So they give you a little card like this. In my case, it's a blue card. It says cash at the top. It's got a little section over here where you can fill out information. You can go and see what fish, plants, invertebrates are up for auction, and then write down what item it is, and that way when it does come up for auction, you can remember, okay, this is one of the items I wanted to buy. You can note down what it was and then bid from there. But for those who were paying on a tab, basically they got a yellow card similar like this, and at the end of the day they turned it in, everything was tallied up, and they paid and were on their way. So overall it was a fun process. As I mentioned, it was my very first full auction with the local aquarium society. I had a few things in mind that I wanted to get. I ended up getting at least 2, and so I'm happy with that. I didn't really want to go overboard at this time because I just like to take things slowly, set them up over time, rather than throwing a bunch of fish into a brand new tank that's immature, maybe just recently cycled. You're more likely to run into problems with that. So my thought is slow and steady wins the game. I'd recommend that if you do have a local aquarium society to look it up, possibly even join it. It's very beneficial. In my case, the local aquarium society, they put on a once-a-month meeting where they give information. Basically, as a member, it's $25 for the year. I can go to any of these meetings. There's certain door prizes you get just by being in the meeting and signing in on the door prize sheet. And the prizes are actually pretty usable. I've gotten a number of items here that I've been able to use for my aquariums. The information sessions that they provide in and of itself is very helpful. And the bonus is if you are actually selling fish or selling something at the auction, you actually get a greater benefit by being a member of the Aquarium Society, because when they take a cut, the Aquarium Society takes 20% and gives the seller 80%. So if I had some fish that I wanted to auction off, I'll get 80% of that value at the auction. The Aquarium Society keeps 20%, versus if I'm a non-member, Aquarium Society will take 40% and I only get 60%. So paying $25 a year for that, you know, if I were going to sell fish or invertebrates, plants, whatever, it's a worthwhile benefit. Even without wanting to sell at auction, I think the education that you get, the community that you get, there's a web forum you can participate on, ask questions, social events, and you get a whole lot of information for a pretty good price. In my opinion, it's well worth it. So I would recommend anybody take a look at it and consider joining if you're interested. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.